ever been in that situation? You know, like when a big #MeToo thing blows up in the news and everyone's kind of buzzing about it, but then you look around and the guys in the room are just strangely silent.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, what's going on there?
Yeah.
What's with the radio silence? Well, today we're diving into that very question, cracking open the book, Men in the Middle. We're going to try to get inside the heads of these guys. And get this, it's not your typical diversity training rehash. This book goes deeper into why a lot of those initiatives fall flat and what's really keeping men from really engaging in these gender equality conversations, you know?
Yeah, no, you hit it on the head. I think the thing that's so fascinating about this book is that, they did all these in-depth interviews with men from all these industries. And what they found was this spectrum, right? Not just a black and white situation.
It's so true. And I love how they even have like these names for these groups, like the women in charge and the number ninjas. Okay, who wouldn't want to be a number ninja, right? But then you've got your lewd crew and the guys that you instantly know who they're talking about.
Totally. Yeah, the labels are super memorable. But where it gets really interesting is this missing middle, right? These are the guys who genuinely want to see progress, but for whatever reason, they stay silent. And the book really unpacks why their voices, which are often, in positions of power, are so crucial for actual change to happen and why that silence actually speaks volumes.
You know what I thought was really interesting, almost like a plot twist, is the book actually argues that the #MeToo movement, while it was meant to empower women, might have actually accidentally made some men clam up even more.
Oh, interesting. It kind of makes sense, though, if you think about it. If you're a guy who wants to be part of the solution, but you're also terrified of saying the wrong thing, and then #MeToo happens, and suddenly it's all about men behaving badly. It's easy to see how that could make someone just retreat even further into silence, right?
Right.
So there's this thing called the spiral of silence. It's a well-researched phenomenon, and basically it says if people feel like their opinion is in the minority, they're less likely to speak up because they're worried about being judged or ostracized.
Wow. So it's like a vicious cycle in a way.
Totally.
The book even talks about this one guy, Lou, who's now afraid to even compliment a coworker on her outfit, like just say, hey, nice dress.
Wow.
Because he's so worried about it being taken the wrong way.
Yeah. And the book does such a good job of showing that fear isn't just limited to, blatant harassment. It goes so much deeper, right? Like into those cultural norms that are so ingrained that it can be hard to even talk about them, let alone actually change them.
For sure. And, the book talks about this thing called man box culture.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me. It's like this invisible box that society puts men in and says, okay, be strong, bottle up those emotions, right? So it's no wonder some men struggle to really engage authentically in these conversations.
Yeah. Man box culture, right? That unspoken set of expectations for men can be so limiting, especially with these conversations about gender dynamics.
Exactly. And here's where I think it gets even trickier. It's almost like this weird paradox. The more we push for gender equality, it seems like some men feel even more pulled back into that man box.
Yeah, it's like a rubber band effect or something.
Totally. It's so strange.
The book actually calls it the male gender perspective paradox. And it makes sense, right, when you think about all the fear that men face.
Yeah.
Fear of their careers being affected, of saying the wrong thing, fear of not even knowing how to be a good ally in the first place.
Totally. Like they're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Exactly. So the book really stresses how important it is to create environments where both men and women feel comfortable sharing their perspectives.
The good news is I think this book doesn't just leave us hanging with all these challenges. They actually offer some really practical steps that we can take to actually move forward.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They actually introduced this model for change. It's called ADKR, which stands for awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And they break it down like how each of those steps can be applied to gender equality in the workplace, which is really cool.
Oh, I love a good framework. So awareness, okay, we've definitely got that covered. But what about the desire piece?
Right.
How do you get everyone on board with actually wanting to change?
Right, because that feels crucial.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the book's emphasis on shared benefits really comes in. It's not about turning men against women or vice versa. It's about highlighting how everyone benefits from a workplace that's more inclusive and equitable.
Right. Like it's not a zero-sum game. Really.
Exactly.
And I feel like diverse teams are more innovative, they're more profitable, and just even on a personal level.
Yeah.
When people feel supported and respected at work, it reduces stress, it leads to better work-life balance.
And it creates this positive feedback loop, right? So once you've got that desire spark, the knowledge and ability stages become a lot more attainable. Like the book has these practical tips for actually having those tough conversations, bridging the gap between those different perspectives, and even overcoming what they hilariously call bummock behaviors.
Bummock behaviors. Okay, I love that. It's just so descriptive. Like, we've all got them, right? Those little things we do out of fear or just feeling awkward.
Exactly.
It's a good reminder to, like, check ourselves and be a little more intentional about what we're actually putting out there.
Being mindful, right. And that actually takes us to the final step of that 80 Korea model, which is reinforcement, which is really all about creating this workplace culture where those positive changes are actually supported over the long term. So, think celebrating successes, providing that ongoing support, and most importantly, holding each other accountable.
Totally, because anyone who's ever tried to break a bad habit knows that reinforcement is key. You've got to keep showing up and making those conscious choices.
You said it. It's about creating that workplace where everyone feels valued, heard, and empowered to do their best work. And the book makes this point that's so crucial. This isn't about fixing men. It's about creating a future together where men and women feel fulfilled. And you know what? That benefits everyone.
It's like this ripple effect, right? When people feel good, when they feel supported, it doesn't just benefit them as individuals, it changes the whole dynamic of the workplace.
Absolutely. And, we've talked a lot about the challenges, about what can go wrong, but the book also shares some really inspiring stories about men who are actively pushing back against that man box idea and making real change happen, which is so encouraging.
Yeah, those are always my favorite stories because it's like this breath of fresh air,
Totally.
And what's interesting is those are often the stories we don't hear about as much. They're not usually making headlines,
right,
but they're the ones who are making a real difference day in and day out.
Absolutely. These are the everyday acts of vitally, like allyship and empathy and courage. They can often have a much bigger impact than some grand gesture. Like the book talks about this guy, Philip, who actually stopped a meeting to address this sexist comment that one of his colleagues made.
Yes. And then there's Tony, who took the time to actually analyze the salary data at his company and then brought it to everyone's attention that there were all these pay gaps between men and women in his department. Like, talk about putting in the work.
Exactly. Like those are examples of guys using their positions to create a more equitable workplace. And like the book points out, it's not just the right thing to do, it's also good for business.
Totally. It's win-win. And the best part is, it doesn't always have to be these huge sweeping actions. Like the book highlights tons of these smaller, but still really meaningful steps that men can take every day, like being more aware of their language, really listening to what their female colleagues have to say, mentoring women within their organization. Those things all make a difference in the end.
They really do.
It's about breaking through those walls of silence and creating this culture of like really open communication and respect.
You got it. And, at the end of the day, I think it's important to remember, this isn't about fixing men. It's about men and women working together to create a future that's more equitable and ultimately more fulfilling for everyone.
Right. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about figuring out how we can all move forward together.
Exactly. And to me, that's like the most hopeful message in all of this. This book reminds us that change is possible. And every single one of us has a part to play in making it happen.
So as we wrap up this dive into men in the middle, we want to leave you with this question. What one action can you take today to move the needle on gender equity?
Yeah, think about it. Whether it's speaking up when you see something that's not right, or being a more conscious listener, or maybe even just taking some time to reflect on your own biases. Every step counts.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, it's about recognizing that we're all in this together, and when one group is held back, we all miss out on the chance to create something truly incredible.
Couldn't have said it better myself.